She walked in like any other shopper. But what happened next left the boutique staff. And there I see manager reeling. When the truth about her identity was revealed, the fallout wasn't just shocking. It was unforgettable. The boutique on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills wasn't just a store, it was a symbol of exclusivity. Gleaming glass doors framed by pristine white marble opened into a haven of luxury. Rows of designer handbags, sparkling jewelry under spotlit displays, and racks of clothing, priced higher than most monthly rents. It wasn't a place for window shoppers. At least that's how Helena, the boutique manager, saw it. Helena had built her reputation on a simple principle. Protect the brand. She ran a tight ship. No idle chatter among employees. No smudged glass counters. And absolutely no tolerance for people who didn't look like they belonged. Tall, with an immaculate bob haircut and a tailored pantsuit, she was the gatekeeper of this world. Exclusivity isn't just about price. She often reminded her team. It's about image. That particular Tuesday was no different. The store hummed quietly, with the soft sounds of classical music, and Helena was stationed by the entrance, her sharp eyes scanning for anything out of place. Then the doors opened. A woman walked in, tall, poised, wearing oversized sunglasses and a simple cream coat. Her heels clicked softly against the marble floor as she took in the store, her hand brushing lightly against a rack of silk scarves. To Helena it was clear this woman wasn't a regular. There was something slightly off. Maybe it was the understated outfit. Or perhaps it was just the way she lingered a bit too long. At the jewelry case, Helena's instincts kicked in. Approaching briskly, she spoke with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "We have a private shopping appointment scheduled. Shortly, I'm afraid I'll need to ask you to leave." The woman lowered her sunglasses, revealing piercing blue eyes that momentarily caught Helena off guard. There was a flicker of recognition. Had she seen her before? But Helena quickly dismissed the thought. "I assure you I'll only be a moment," the woman said in a calm, even tone. "I just wanted to look around." Helena's stiffened politeness gave way to firm resolve. "I'm sorry, but this is a private establishment. If you'd like to book an appointment, we'd be happy to accommodate you another time." For a brief moment, the woman's expression didn't change. Then, without a word, she slid her sunglasses back on and walked out, her heels echoing as she left. Helena watched her go, a faint sense of satisfaction settling into her. She had done her job, protected the brand. But something about the encounter unsettled her. There was a quiet intensity in the woman's demeanor, as though she knew something Helena didn't. And Helena had no idea just how much her actions would come back to haunt her. Helena didn't think much about the incident. At first, in her line of work, people came and went. Some tried to bluff their way into this world of high-end luxury, hoping to appear wealthier or more important than they really were. She'd seen it all. Wannabe influencers flashing fake designer bags, curious tourists who didn't understand the concept of by appointment only, and even the occasional tabloid reporter fishing for a scoop. As the day went on, Helena's attention shifted back to the usual routine. She meticulously oversaw a new shipment of couture dresses, ensuring every hemline was pressed to perfection before they were displayed. She checked the lighting on the main jewelry case, making sure each diamond sparkled just right. To her, the boutique was a stage and she was the director. No detail was too small to escape her notice. But later that evening, as she locked up the store and headed home, the memory of the mysterious woman began to linger. In the back of her mind there was something about her, something poised and unshaken, as if she were accustomed to being treated with deference. Helena had dismissed her with the confidence of someone who assumed she held all the power. But now she wondered, who was that woman really? The following morning, Helena's routine began as usual. She arrived early, walking through the store to ensure everything was in its rightful place. By mid-morning, whispers began to ripple through the staff. One of the sales associates, a young woman named Sophia, approached Helena hesitantly. "Did you hear about the woman from yesterday?" Sophia asked, her voice low but tinged with excitement. Helena raised an eyebrow. "What about her?" Sophia glanced around before continuing. "One of the customers this morning said it was Melania Trump." Helena froze, her hand gripping the edge of the counter. She stared at Sophia, the words sinking in slowly. "Melania Trump," she repeated, her tone skeptical. "Yes. Sophia said, nodding earnestly. They showed me a picture on their phone. It was definitely her. Helena's mind raced. Could it be true? Had she, in her rigid adherence to protocol, just dismissed one of the most recognizable women in the world? A wave of unease swept over her, but she quickly masked it with her usual composure. It doesn't matter who she was, she said briskly. Rules are rules. We can't let just anyone wander in without an appointment. But deep down, Helena knew this wasn't just anyone. And while she tried to focus on her work, a gnawing feeling took hold. If that really had been Melania Trump, what would happen next? Word spread faster than Helena could have anticipated. By the afternoon, the boutique buzzed with murmurs from both employees and customers alike. While Helena tried to maintain an air of control, the whispers only grew louder. She looked so elegant, one customer said while perusing the handbags. I can't believe someone would treat her like that. I heard she walked out without saying a word, chimed another. So classy. But you just know she was furious. Helena, overhearing bits of these conversations, felt a knot tightening in her stomach. The world of high fashion wasn't just about luxury. It thrived on reputation. A single misstep, especially one involving someone like Melania Trump, could tarnish a brand for years. That evening, as Helena scrolled through her phone, a chill swept over her. Social media had picked up on the story. Someone, likely a customer, had posted a vague but damning account of the incident. A certain boutique manager, just kicked out one of the most famous women in America. Classless behavior in a so-called luxury establishment. Though the post didn't name the boutique outright, the comments were buzzing with speculation. People were tagging brands, asking for clarification, and some even claiming they knew exactly which store it was. Helena's chest tightened. She tossed her phone aside, trying to convince herself it would blow over. People always overreact online, she muttered under her breath. But her confidence felt shaky. The next day, her worst fears came true. A local news outlet picked up the story, running a short segment, speculating on the identity of the boutique. Although they didn't confirm it outright, the coverage was enough to make her feel exposed. Customers began arriving, not just to shop but to gossip. One woman, holding a latte and sporting oversized sunglasses, leaned into her friend and whispered loudly, "This is the place, isn't it?" Helena's mask of control began to slip. Still, she held her ground. She was sure of one thing. Melania wasn't coming back. Someone as prominent as her wouldn't bother revisiting the scene of an insult. But Helena was wrong. The return was coming, and it would be impossible to ignore. It happened on a Friday afternoon, just as the boutique was reaching its peak of the day. The sunlit showroom bustled with well-dressed patrons, browsing the racks, and sales associates rushing to accommodate them. Helena stood near the cashier counter, exuding her usual air of authority. But even she couldn't have anticipated what was about to happen. The glass door swung open with deliberate force, and in stepped the woman Helena had so quickly dismissed, Melania Trump. But this time she wasn't alone. A small entourage followed her, a security detail in tailored suits, a woman holding a sleek leather briefcase, and another figure who appeared to be a publicist. Behind them, several photographers lingered, just outside the entrance, their camera flashes igniting a frenzy. The quiet murmur of the boutique was replaced by gasps and a flurry of whispers. Melania stood tall and poised, her expression unreadable. She wore a fitted black dress, simple yet commanding, paired with a set of diamonds that caught the light. With every movement, her presence was magnetic, pulling all eyes in her direction. Helena's heart sank. She felt her cheeks flush and her hands grow clammy as she locked eyes with Melania, who looked at her for a moment that felt like an eternity. There was no anger in her gaze, no scorn, just an air of quiet control that unnerved Helena more than any confrontation could have. "Good afternoon," Melania said, her voice calm but firm. "I'd like to look around now." Is that allowed? The question hung in the air, carrying a weight that was impossible to ignore. Every employee in the room froze, their eyes darting between Melania and Helena. Customers whispered behind perfectly manicured hands, their curiosity barely contained. Helena's instincts screamed at her to say something, anything to regain control of the situation. But no words came. Instead, she nodded stiffly, stepping aside to allow Melania access to the store she had been so abruptly dismissed from. Just days earlier, as Melania moved through the boutique, her entourage stayed close, observing every detail. She didn't rush. She examined each display, her fingers brushing over fabrics, and her eyes pausing on price tags. To Helena, it felt less like shopping and more like an evaluation, as though Melania were taking note of every corner of the store and every misstep Helena had made. The tension in the boutique was palpable. Even the other customers seemed to tread lightly, their movements more subdued, as they tried to take in the unfolding scene. Helena, meanwhile, could feel her authority slipping away with every passing second. But the moment that would truly change everything hadn't come yet. It was just around the corner. The atmosphere in the boutique became electric, a mix of suspense and anticipation that no one could ignore. Customers pretended to browse but stayed within earshot, craning their necks to observe. Employees stood at attention, unsure of what to do, but unwilling to be caught slacking in this moment. Helena, for her part, tried to blend into the background, but it was impossible. Melania's presence had turned the spotlight directly onto her. As Melania approached the jewelry case, her gaze swept the display. Before pausing at an elaborate diamond necklace, she glanced at the nearby sales associate, a junior employee named Clara, who stepped forward hesitantly. "May I see this piece?" Melania asked, her tone polite but laced with authority. Clara fumbled slightly, but managed to retrieve the necklace and place it on the counter. "Of course." Melania studied it for a moment, before glancing over her shoulder. "What do you think?" she asked, directing her question not to her entourage, but to Helena, who stood frozen just a few feet away. The question caught Helena off guard. She stammered, struggling to find her voice. "It's a beautiful piece, one of our finest," she said, her words sounding hollow. Even to herself, Melania nodded slowly, then turned her attention back to Clara. "I'll take it," she said with a small smile, sliding her black credit card across the counter. As Clara completed the transaction, Melania turned back to Helena. Her expression remained calm, almost serene, but her words cut through the room like a knife. "It's important, don't you think, to treat everyone with respect, especially when you don't know who they are?" The store fell silent. Every eye was on Helena, who felt as though the ground might give way beneath her feet. She struggled to form a response, but Melania didn't wait for one. Instead, she gestured to her publicist, who handed her a small envelope. "This is for your staff," Melania said, holding the envelope out to Helena, a token of appreciation for their professionalism. Helena hesitated before taking it. The envelope was heavier than she expected, and when she opened it later, she would discover it contained a check for an astonishing amount, meant to be divided among the employees. It was a gesture of generosity that contrasted starkly with the quiet reprimand she had just received. But Melania wasn't finished. She turned to Clara, who was still holding the diamond necklace, and offered her a warm smile. "Thank you for your help today. You've been wonderful with that." She walked toward the door, her entourage falling into step behind her. As she exited, the photographers outside sprang into action, their cameras capturing every moment of her departure. Inside, the boutique remained silent. Customers whispered among themselves, and employees exchanged stunned glances. Helena stood rooted to the spot, her mind racing. She had underestimated this woman once, but the lesson she had just learned would be impossible to forget. The boutique remained in an unusual state of quiet. Long after Melania had left, customers trickled out, many with their purchases in hand, but all with stories they couldn't wait to share. The employees, still processing the events, exchanged hushed conversations behind the counter. Helena stood near the jewelry case, her face pale and her hands trembling slightly. As she stared at the envelope Melania had handed her, she retreated to her office, closing the door behind her. Her hands shook as she pulled out the check, her eyes widening at the number. It was enough to provide a significant bonus to every employee, a gesture of kindness that only magnified the weight of Helena's mistake. She placed the check on her desk, her thoughts spiraling. Helena prided herself on her professionalism and judgment, but today her own prejudices had been laid bare. She had dismissed someone based on assumptions, never stopping to consider who they might be or what they deserved. Her mantra of "protect the brand" suddenly felt hollow when weighed against the consequences of her actions. As she replayed the scene in her mind, a new realization took hold. The boutique wasn't just about exclusivity or luxury. It was about experience, and the experience she had offered to Melania had been one of rejection, not respect. Helena felt a deep pang of shame, knowing her actions had not only damaged her own reputation, but could have jeopardized the stores as well. The knock on her door startled her. It was Clara standing hesitantly in the doorway. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Helena nodded, though her throat felt tight. "I'm fine," she managed to say. "But Clara didn't leave, you know." Clara began, her voice tentative. "She wasn't angry, I mean. Not really." It felt like she wanted to make a point, not humiliate anyone. Helena met Clara's gaze and saw no judgment there, just a quiet understanding. It was a small kindness that brought Helena back to reality. She wasn't beyond redemption, but she needed to make changes. "Thank you, Clara," Helena said, her voice more sincere than it had been in a long time. "And thank you for being everything I wasn't today." Clara smiled faintly before slipping out of the office. Helena leaned back in her chair, the check still in her hands, and made a decision. It was time to rebuild not just her own image, but the trust she had so carelessly risked. The following morning, Helena arrived at the boutique earlier than usual. The air was crisp and the sun had just begun to bathe the streets in a golden glow. She took a deep breath before unlocking the doors, determined to face the day with a renewed sense of purpose. Her first order of business was gathering the staff for a meeting. The employees filed in, exchanging curious glances as they settled into the small lounge area. Clara, Sophia, and the others watched Helena closely, sensing something different in her demeanor. "I owe all of you an apology," Helena began, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "Yesterday I let my assumptions cloud my judgment. I treated someone unfairly, and in doing so I also let all of you down. That's not the kind of leader I want to be, and it's not the kind of example I want to set." The room was silent, but the weight of her words hung in the air. Helena continued, "We have an opportunity to learn from this. Respect and kindness shouldn't depend on who someone is, or who we think they are. That's a lesson I needed to relearn, and I hope we can all carry it forward." She placed the envelope Melania had given her on the table. "This check is for all of you. It's a testament to how well you handled yesterday. Despite my shortcomings, you deserve this." A ripple of surprise and gratitude moved through the room. Clara, who had been the most directly involved, spoke up. "Thank you, Helena. I think we all learned something yesterday." Helena nodded, feeling a sense of relief. She wasn't perfect, far from it, but she was taking steps to make amends. The boutique wasn't just a store. It was a reflection of the people who worked there. And from that day forward, Helena vowed to ensure it reflected the values of respect, inclusivity, and grace. As the employees returned to their duties, the boutique began to fill with customers. Helena observed them with a fresh perspective, no longer seeing them as mere visitors, but as individuals with stories, worth, and dignity. Every interaction became an opportunity to demonstrate the lessons she had learned in the days that followed. News of Melania's visit faded from the headlines, replaced by new stories, but for Helena and her staff, the impact lingered. The encounter had been a turning point, a reminder of the importance of humility and the power of second chances. And in a world often quick to judge, they had learned the value of choosing kindness instead. Life often presents us with moments that test our character. This story serves as a reminder to approach every person with respect and compassion. No matter who they are, assumptions can lead to mistakes, but owning up to them and learning from them is what truly defines us. If this story resonated with you, consider how you might show kindness in your own life. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that inspire reflection and growth.